This is just going to be a simple launch test. We're not really going to do anything majorly impressive with it. This is just to test the rather interesting landing arrangement that I have here is actually going to manage to be stable. So yes, let's just clear the launch pad. Well, it doesn't look entirely like it's going to be complete rubbish. Let's launch and see what happens. Yeah, it's not too bad for stability. It's holding its own. So this is going to be our upper stage. Doesn't look like we're suffering too much in the way of warping or bending. So we're just gonna board this. So this is our final lunar mission launch vehicle. You can see it's got framing and struts all over the place, so I'm going to take you through it. This is a fairly standard service module up the top. It's got a heap of RCS fuel, a main fuel tank and an engine. This here is going to be our lander. It contains only just enough resources to get down to the Mun and we hope back. I'm going to have to test this in Kerbal orbit to actually figure out whether or not it's actually going to work okay. It's got a docking ring on the top, so it can dock with the docking ring that's in the top of the CSM. Below we've got our Lunar insertion stage. This should be able to get us into either a final orbit or at least manage to progress us into trans-Mun injection. Hopefully we're only going to have to couple with this and control it from the CSM once we're actually on the way to the Mun. We've got our second stage, which is a whole heap of engines, and our first stage, which is enormous and has got all of these girders and various other bits and pieces all over it. A lot of this is basically just to hold the thing together, trying to actually improve the rigidity of the whole craft, because this is a very tall craft, and I'm not convinced that it's going to stay together necessarily that well. So yeah, this is a really tall craft. We're gonna try and use as many struts as we can to hold this entire monstrous thing together. So let's see whether or not we can get this into at least Kerbal orbit. Here we go. Well, it hasn't exploded on the pad, so that's always a positive thing. It is wobbling around a little bit, but it's not too bad. We're going to go for primary launch. I'm just rearranging the stages here. Primary launch in 3, 2, 1. Engine start, and let's launch. This is quite a beast to launch. I'm trying to do this without actually an ACES begin our pitch over now. We're actually a little bit ahead of there's 90, there it is. So we've managed to roll quite a lot. We're managing to do okay. We're going to do some staging. Ignite our second stage. Again, we're going to try not to pitch over too quickly. We're kind of only at 16,000 meters, so kind of want to not pitch over quite so aggressively. Used about a third of our fuel. 93.55 is pretty good. We'll add a maneuver to secularize it to 105.93. That looks pretty good to me. So we've still got a third of our fuel in our upper stage. That's not ideal, but we've only got 41 meters per second to gain to put us into a 100 orbit, so we're not doing too badly. That doesn't leave us a huge amount of fuel to do any testing with, but it should be enough. The biggest problem that I feel I have at the moment is we don't really have any electrical charge coming in, but we're not actually consuming any, so that's not too bad. We've got a burn coming up in 9 minutes to put us in a moderately circular orbit. Now we need to figure out how we're actually going to do the docking maneuver to we need this to be stable, because if this is constantly spinning around, we're not going to be able to control it. So we're going to need to get this into a position where it's actually stable. So why don't we try and align it with our direction of travel. And then let's see if we can actually line up and dock with it. Alright, so this is the moment of truth. Okay. I think I've done this in the wrong order. I have done this in the wrong order. Oh, that's going to be annoying. That's a bit of a problem. Can't really dock with something that I have no control over. So that's a bit unfortunate. So we're going to have to go back and figure out how we actually need to arrange this dock. Because if we can't dock with our lander, then it's not really going to work. So I'm going to deorbit this, and that'll just be sitting there in orbit forever, I think. So that didn't go so well, and now I think they're stuck in orbit. Yeah, so we broke our lander apart and we accidentally crashed into it. So we're going to try and deorbit by by RCS only. So this is going to be moderately interesting. If we can get our purposes down far enough, we should actually be okay. Yeah, okay, we're in the atmosphere. That'll be fine. 67. You can probably actually deorbit with more than that. Get it as low as we can possibly manage. Yeah, that's kind of messy. Oh well. We'll need to rearrange the docking rings on the ship so that we can get ourselves into a better orbit. Better orbit. So we can get ourselves into a position where we're 40 kilometers should be fine. So we can get ourselves into a position where we're able to actually yeah, Apollo 2 landed debris. That's gonna be uncomfortable. What kind of debris have we actually got? Yeah, okay. We can't really tell. Where is our debris? Wow. Yeah, that's all going to stay in orbit for a while. But, you know, never mind. We actually didn't use that much monopropellant, which is kind of neat. We can actually deorbit with monopropellant alone. That's interesting. I'm wondering whether or not we want to actually land with monopropellant entirely and not anything else. That's an interesting question. But for now, we're just going to deorbit. Just gonna fix our entry corridor. Sorry, our entry angle. Looks like we're going to land on the night side. It's a bit unfortunate. Starting to slow down quite aggressively now. Probably the best entry corridor I think we've had. So 40 kilometers is clearly the right entry corridor for the orbit speed that we had. And we're just going to cruise down to a touchdown. Be pretty good. And we are down.